Hello, we are live. We are live. I'd like to say hello to the people in the comment section. Currently, there are none. Show yourself if you're there. Do not be shy. Welcome to the Transfer Exchange, the review show. And we have our regular panel of guests. They're not just guests, they're scouts. They do a lot of research, and that's for you lot. And for me, obviously. I put them through their paces. At the top, we've got our chief scout. It's Steve K.
Hello, everybody.
Back by popular demand, it's the chef. It's Sheffield Simon.
Even got a Sheffield logo. Look.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, my word. He's got the chef. Do you know what that means? That means we've connected. Me and Simon have officially connected. He used to fight it with the name the chef, but now he's
people just call me Sheffield. They don't call me Powell anymore. So I've gone with it.
All right. Of course, we've got our scout from overseas. He's not just any scout; he's our overseas scout. It's Jerome Marks.
Evening, everyone.
Thank you very much. And we had to bring him back. It's our Dutch expert. It is James Rowe. How you doing, James?
Very well. Good evening, fellas. I hope everybody's well.
We are all well. Let's even this up. We're all on a level. Okay, we've got a lot to talk about tonight. We've got Arteta's comments with Ian Wright. We've got transfer fees. We've got Arsenal have signed someone. Yes, they have. It's nearly official. It's not quite there. It's nearly there. But they've signed someone. Santi wants to come back as a coach. Would you have him?
Yes.
I would. We've been linked to Brazilian Gerson. Kieran Tierney to Leicester. Not a chance, but we'll talk about it. And then we've got a few other bits to talk about with obviously the man himself, James Rowe. Steve's done. But we're going to start tonight. Hello, Simpy. Please like and subscribe, Simp. Like, subscribe, press the button. Let's go. First of all, Miguel Arteta's comments. He's recently done an interview with Adidas and Ian Wright. Very good interview. If you haven't seen it, Ian Wright's doing interviews with a lot of coaches and his friends and stuff like that, and it's really good. And he's been very sort of he's not minced any words with his questions either, which is really good. It's typical Ian Wright. And one of the questions he asked was about persuading players to join Arsenal. And Mikel Arteta's comments were, if I've got to persuade a player to join Arsenal, it puts me off. And it's the same with players, that if I have to try and persuade a player to stay, it's alarm bells, which for me is excellent. It means you want players at your club that want to be there, and it wants players joining your club that are excited about joining your club. Jerome, I know you saw the interview. What was your take on that?
You know what? As an Arsenal fan, what Arteta said with regards to not having to persuade players, that's exactly what you want to hear, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And obviously at the moment he's got players that aren't his, but over time, when he can bring in his own players, hopefully you'll see that the players, when they play, the effort they put in will be there. And that's what you want. You want players that want to be at the club, and it's refreshing to hear that, really, as a fan. So yeah, really pleased to hear it, and we'll see. We'll see if Aubameyang stays. Maybe that's because he hasn't had to persuade him. Maybe Aubameyang does want to stay. But yeah, really happy to hear that from Arteta.
Steve, what would be your take on that? It's obviously good news. That it's obviously something you want to hear from your manager, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's the perfect thing you want to hear from your manager, because you know that if he signs a player and he may not be doing what you may want him to do in the first few games, you know that he's there because he's there for Arsenal. So you've got to give him time and trust him. Also, if there's players that you think that we should be going for, and all of a sudden we don't, we all get upset and annoyed. Right? You know, there's a very good reason, and that's probably because they've said something to our manager, who has basically seen that they're basically more interested in the money that they've offered rather than the club. Yeah, I mean, when the guy first came to Arsenal, I mean, you know, it was a fantastic, you know, day for me. I mean, his first interview told me everything, and yeah, I mean, I've just got every trust in him now to bring in the right players, and whoever leaves, like, they've left for a reason. So yeah, fantastic.
James, along your experience of interviewing managers or just being in and around it, do you know whether it's a thing that managers would have to persuade a player to join, or is it usually a case that the manager wants the player to just be there rather than having to twist his arm or give him more money or sell him dreams?
I think it's very promising what Arteta said, but my own personal opinion, guys, is the proof is in the pudding. It's very easy to say at this precise moment in time, but when he's in the thick of it, when he's dealing with agents, players, representatives, when you've got clubs that are interested, when it's the fine details of speaking to sporting directors and release clause, I wager it's a lot harder. So yes, it's very promising that he said those things, but also you would expect him to say those things. So I will support every manager like I've always done, supporting the club for more than 30 years. But I also wouldn't really expect him to say anything else at the minute. I mean, as I say, it's very promising, and it's something that we can all. It's something that we can be happy about and be pleased about. But by the same token, looking from afar and dealing with professional players and managers myself, when I speak to them and interview them, I wouldn't really expect them to say anything different at this precise moment in time.
Okay. Now, Simon, I know that would have resonated with you. It would have hit you hard in the chest, wouldn't it?
Yep. I'll go in a minute. 3, 2, 1. What Arteta said, I was absolutely fucking gassed. Sorry for swearing. I was gassed. And then a few days later, Thomas Partey, this thing going around, Graham Hunter, an absolute don for Spain, is reporting the most reliable guy for getting information on players. Everything he said about Partey, he wants to work with Arteta. He likes the idea with Arteta. Arteta was a midfielder in the same place as Partey, and he can perform and make him even better as a player. And listening to what Man City players like Kevin De Bruyne, Leroy Sané, Raheem Sterling, David Silva, even Aguero to an extent, Graham Hunter cleared everything up. I 100% believe Partey's coming to Arsenal.
Okay. Typical Simon. Ask me a question about one thing, answer with a different answer. Brilliant.
No, but everything Arteta said, when he says, if I have to explain to a player to come to Arsenal, it's already a bad move for him, because he don't want to have to do that. You shouldn't have to do that. You should want to play for Arsenal, and that's what he wants. And that's what I want to hear as a fan. But it's like what James says, proof is in the pudding. But when you hear what Graham Hunter from Spain says as well, and how he talks about different players and all that, it just backs up for what Arteta says and what Partey's come out and said.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Like James says, it's what you want to hear. But he could have said something different. He could have said, sometimes you've got to do this. Sometimes you've got to make, like, he says the right thing. And he seems to be saying the right thing a lot. So I'm happy at the moment. Another thing that sort of taken my attention was, considering the situation we're currently in with the pandemic, a lot was made of the fact that transfer fees would be different. There was even something in the papers that said percentages on transfer fees have gone down on average by around about 20 million, 15 million, 10 million. So they've reduced a lot. But West Ham have been one club that stood resolute in it. Real Madrid, with a few of their players, Dani Ceballos being one of them, and Inter Milan, obviously, with Martinez asking for 110 million for their player, which says that these clubs are holding out for top money for their assets still, and not going to sort of pander to the to the masses when they say the prices have to come down. Even Real Madrid saying that Dani Ceballos is now going to be worth 44 million instead of what was said to be 35 million about 2 months ago. Do we actually think that there's going to be much impact with regards to transfer fees going forward, or do you think it was just sort of a worry at first, which is sort of it's gone? Steve, I know you said you had some insider knowledge when it came to the Ceballos deal and why it may have gone up in price.
Yeah, well, the Dani Ceballos, I mean, Real Madrid. I think it all goes back to them, obviously, because that's basically who his club are. I mean, they're after the guy from what's his from someone might be able to. It's gone from the head for a minute, but the guy from I forget what his name is now. But anyway, they're after a guy.
Might need a clue, Steve.
The guy from the club whose name is.
Yeah, I can't think what his name is. I might be able to tell you in a minute. But no, they're after a £70 million winger from Seville. He's their top player. And basically what they've done, that Real Madrid, like I said last week, they don't lose money on players. So what they've done, they've gone back to Arsenal and said, and they put the money up for Ceballos, so they can pay for this £70 million absolutely superstar from Seville. So that's my reason why I think they've gone up on Ceballos.
James, do you think that transfer fees are really going to change? Because I initially thought they were, but the more and more I'm hearing anything sort of happening and clubs going to and fro, the fees seem to be staying in and around the same level. Do you think they're really going to take much of a change?
I personally think that you're going to find clubs just being that little bit more aware. You know, we're dealing with multi-million-pound organisations where the world has to deal with a global pandemic, and I think what you'll particularly find with the bigger clubs is that just that little bit more of awareness of checking in their youth teams what they have before going out and spending money on a player. I think you'll have players as also being a little bit more aware, because you see multiple examples of young players, especially here in the Netherlands, leaving at a very young age, and some of them don't end up playing. So it's a fine balance between signing for a club where you are going to play, and also with the budgets that clubs have, and with the safety of the world is the most important thing, the safety of the people. I just think all the bigger clubs, I think the likes of Real Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester United, even, I just think they're going to be that little bit more aware. I just think they're going to feel a kind of like not pressure, but they're going to feel inclined to double check what they have before going out and spending loads and loads of money on a player who could well be injured in the short term. He might be cup tied in certain situations. So I just think you'll see, especially with the bigger clubs, you'll see clubs being just that little bit more aware.
Yeah. Jerome, how much do you think this is potentially clubs trying to claw back a bit of money which may have been lost from not playing, and saying, look, if you want our player, you're going to have to pay 90 million for him? Because, look, Declan Rice is a good player, but is he really a 90 million pound player?
Yeah. No, he's not. He's a £100 million player. I'm only joking.
Typical East End boy.
Yeah. Well, if you've got a player on your books, you're not gonna say to him, "Oh, go on, then you can have this player for £20 million less." You're gonna say that you want top dollar for him, and then maybe in the negotiations you'll take less. With regards to fees, I think if they are going to drop, I don't think they'll drop for. I think they'll only drop for maybe 1 or 2 seasons, because once this is all over, you're still going to have the demand. The TV money's still going to come in. There's still such big demand for football. You're still going to get people going through the gates. So, it might change a little bit, but not for the long term. I don't think you're still going to get 50, 60, 70 million pound transfers happening. That's just my my personal thoughts on it.
Yeah, Lucas Ocampos was the guy from Seville that Real Madrid are after, and they want him badly, and they need to pay £70 million to get him. So that's why they put the money up on Ceballos. So what's going to happen? The first 5, 6, 7 signings of the new season, that's going to gauge how it's going to go.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
We all know what transfers do. Transfers domino effect.
Yeah.
So as soon as there's one, then everything dominoes to that price because every club's got to get their money back for that certain player and that certain player. So that's the way it'll go.
Yeah. So I was just about to say to you, Si, how much do you think this is clubs waiting for the first person to make the move on that buy before they start sort of? Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, so, yeah.
I've just answered that.
I muted him. His dog was barking in the background, so it's either get rid of the dog or mute him. Sorry. How much do you think this is clubs waiting for the first person to make a move?
I think it's going to go two ways. You know, when the transfer window years and years and years ago, and Alan Shearer went for 15 million to Newcastle. I think you're going to see big players basically go for ridiculous fees because obviously with this pandemic, or it could go the different way, and it could go all the lower league clubs that have got players that the big clubs want. They could turn around and end up saying to them, well, it's going to cost you this much because they're going to need the money as well. They're going to need money for other stuff. So they're going to look at their players. Like that guy from Blackburn, he was supposed to be close to going to Manchester United, weren't he, for, I think it was 30 mil. I won't be surprised now if they tell Man United, no, 60 million, you can have him. They need to make some money back, and they're going to do this by using players. That's what I think.
You know what? They might have to. I think you're referring to a player from Birmingham. These clubs, they might have to. It could go the other way. They might have to take less because they're desperate for money.
Well, that's what I mean. But then, say Birmingham are really desperate for money, they'll not just accept 30. But Man United are like this massive, big global name, aren't they? They've got loads of money, like millions. So they're going to turn around. The same as Newcastle with their owners. I think they're going to make Newcastle pay over the odds for their players now because they need it after this pandemic. With England, I can see the Championship struggling. League One and League Two, I fear for them. But the Premier League, there's too much money. There's too much money in names at clubs, TV money, and all that revenues. And you've got commercial rights and all that. I don't think the Premier League's going to get hit as bad as what people make out. I think your Spanish league, your Italy league, your Bundesliga, they're all going to suffer to a degree.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. When clubs like Newcastle are not obviously Newcastle aren't making mock-ups of these, but when people are making mock-ups of Newcastle with Mbappe, Oblique, and all sorts of world superstars, of course, clubs are going to know that they're coming with big wallets and big paychecks, so they're gonna add an extra 5-10 million when Newcastle knock at the door. Because now when Newcastle knock, it's a different knock. So, and they know there's going to be wads full of cash. That's why. So that's what happens when you've got a country that wants to take over a club. So I don't really feel sorry for them. I mean, it is what it is. If they get it, they get it. Next up, this is a big one. Santi Cazorla is apparently homesick, and he wants to come back to Arsenal in one way, shape, or form. Personally, with the lack of creativity in our midfield, I'd take him back as a player, but he wants to come back as a coach. Would we have Santi Cazorla back as a coach?
Yes. I'd have him back as a player for 1 year. Let him have a good send-off, and then be Arteta's right-hand man.
That wouldn't be bad. Steve, would you have Arteta as a coach?
Cazorla,
yeah.
Yeah. Cazorla, yes, 100%, mate. I mean, any Arsenal fan would have him as a coach, but there'd have to be players in that midfield. I mean, that's his game. That's his forte, right? Our midfields, that's where we need him to improve, right? What would he do with our midfield now? I don't think he could do anything with our midfield now at the minute. But
he'd run circles around David's, what's his name? Bloody hell, Danny Ceballos.
No, I'm not as a player. I mean, if he's got to coach Saka to do what Cazorla does, or Torreira to do what they're doing, then they're not going to do it. But saying that, he's 100%, mate, because for the future, definitely, but with different players.
I think Guendouzi could learn a lot under him.
Yeah, you're not trying to reinvent the wheel. You're not trying to make Granit Xhaka into Ozil. Like, that's not what you're trying to do. Like you're trying to take a classy, someone with excellent vision, someone that could just read the game just like no other, and put his touch on players. James, what do you think Santi Cazorla could bring to Arsenal as a coach?
Well, first and foremost, he's still a player, and he's been doing very, very well for Villarreal.
He has,
and he's been important to them in terms of goals and assists. And you also have to factor in: is he ready to retire and just go into coaching? Because there are many players that towards the end of their careers, some retire early due to injury, some are mentally not prepared to finish, and some, when they do finish, they're a little bit shocked. They're a little bit, what happens now in terms of, the body thinks that you're going to go and train, but you're not. You're at home. So I think first and foremost, I think he has to decide if he wants to finish playing, and then also spending time with the family and commitments as well. So I don't think it's something that's going to happen in the short term. I think people are putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with 5 because of the Arteta link and Cazorla link, and the fact that they're both Spanish. And my personal opinion is, if a player is not yet fully retired, and also the journey that a player's been on when they've only known professional football for maybe 20 years, and they're mentally getting ready to stop playing professional football, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get ready for the next challenge. First and foremost, they don't know exactly what they want to do. Some have an idea, some don't. So I think first and foremost, we have to let him make a decision. But I think in terms of the future, I think it's an avenue that he may well go down. But he may well decide, like in the case of Alonso. Alonso is doing very well. Xabi Alonso, that is doing very, very well in Spain. Started out at Real Madrid, went on to Sociedad. Cazorla might prefer the same route. I mean, he was at Malaga as a player. Maybe he wants to build up his coaching experience at Malaga, for example, and then look elsewhere to see what might be possible for him. But I think first and foremost, let him finish his playing days and let him make a decision himself first and foremost.
Yeah, I think, James, it's probably more hope, because Santi Cazorla was a player that we probably felt that had left before his time, and with his injury, and now that he's sort of rehabilitated himself, which was a miracle. I think there's a little bit of Arsenal that are pining for him back a bit. Jerome, I know you'd have him back, and I know we may be jumping the gun, but what do you think he could bring?
We only know Cazorla as Cazorla the player, don't we? So, like James said, would I have him back as a player? 100%. If you ask me, is he a good coach? Would you have him as a coach? We don't know. He hasn't coached before. But obviously, you could ask 100 Arsenal fans. I reckon all of them would say, yeah, we want him back in some capacity, but he's got no experience as a coach. I'm sure he can probably spot a good player, but when it comes to
well done there.
It's a thank
you very much, Jerome. You cued me in for my next slot there, mate. That was like a through ball. That was Santi Cazorla-esque. Little backspin on the through ball. Brilliant.
That was triangle on FIFA.
It was triangle finesse. I love that, Jerome. As Jerome was just saying, Santi Cazorla could probably recommend a good player to us, and he has been doing that already. He goes by the name of, I'm about to butcher this, I'll try my best, Samuel Chukweze, Nigerian international. He came from the Real Madrid B team. He's been playing in the A team, and he's a very, very direct, pacey, tricky winger. Santi Cazorla even went as far as to say he would be a player of his generation, which is a lot. which is a lot to say for a young player who's just coming through at Villarreal. I know you guys have taken a look at him. Simon, did you manage to have a look at him, and do you think he could do in the Premier League?
I think probably in the next few years he could do it in the Premier League. I don't think he's ready now. I think if you chucked him in the Premier League now, it'd be like Martinelli in his first season. You know, where he's just had to basically take his time and understand the league and see how quick he could do it. But he does really look very good. He looks really good. It reminds me this is a big quote, this. It reminds me of Ronaldo. Have you ever watched Ronaldo at Sporting Lisbon? You know, when he just took a player on and he didn't care who you were. He didn't care if he were best player in the world. He just had no fear.
I know what you mean, and you do get that a lot from, especially Nigerian wingers. I'll tell you that. Finidi George back in the day. These were wingers that you remember, Jerome.
Yeah, I remember the name, yeah.
These were wingers that were played fearless, and they did that up until when they retired. They just didn't care who was in front of them. You were causing them trouble all game. I know you had a look at him, Steve. What did you think of him?
Oh, I thought this geezer was absolute class. I thought that just like what Simon was saying, is a lot of these Nigerians that are around these days, these 19-year-olds, they're playing football like how you play football in the park. You know, I can remember playing football in the park, and that's when I see him, that's what he reminded me of. He was close to coming to Arsenal in 2016, and there was this big furore between his club, which was Dynamo, the Dynamo Academy, and they just wanted, I think, an extra 2 million, and I think they won about 60 million for him now. For this kid,
mil. Yeah,
60 mil they want for him, and you know, we could have got it for about 10 million. You know, another Gazidis masterstroke. But
hindsight's a wonderful thing, especially when it comes to players that maybe have come from leagues which you don't necessarily associate with bringing through exceptional quality, and you want to see that player go.
His dribbling's one of the best I've seen. One of the best I've seen around it, and his dribbling's incredible.
And that's the thing, like with clubs, it's hard to take that risk, especially you're talking about 10 million for a player who's come through from Dynamo youth team. That's a big ask. You're asking a lot there. I mean, Jerome, would you have paid 10 million at the time for a player coming through at Dynamo youth team? For me, it's a big ask.
Yes, it is hard. You know what? I agree with the boys what they're saying about him. He looks an excellent player. What surprised me about him, though, is considering how good he looks, his stats aren't that great at all. It's really weird, and I'm not a big lover of stats because they can be misleading. But if I'm not wrong, I think he scored 3 goals and got 3 assists this season in a 26 games. Which, if you listen to that, you think, oh, that's not good. But he really looks excellent. Loves taking players on. Can play left or right. He draws. Normally, when you see him dribble, he'll attract like 2 or 3 players with him, and that will create space for others. I suppose he's still young. He's still only 20. He's 21 later this month. But yeah, he looks a real good talent.
And that's the thing. I looked at his stats, and his stats for Villarreal B weren't far off the same. It was like, I was thinking to myself, what kind of generational player is Santi Cazorla talking about here? But I'm one that's not for stats. I'd rather watch the player and see what he brings to the game, because like you said, in them stats can't tell you that he dribbled the ball 25, 30 yards, drew in 3 men, passed the ball, then that ball got passed to another person, then that person got the assist. It's not going to tell you that. Stats won't tell you that.
Mustafi's better than Van Dijk on stats. That's just what?
I mean, that can never be possible. Like
it is on stats.
Unless the stats, I don't know. I can't even think of any. No, it's not possible.
I'll show you after this. I'll prove it to you.
Go on. James, have you seen much of this Samuel Chukweze from Villarreal?
Hello. Hello, can you hear? You fell away a bit. You were talking about the player from Villarreal.
Yeah. Have you seen much of him?
What was his name again? You fell away.
Samuel Chukweze. I've probably butchered it.
Yeah, I know. All I know of him is that he has been putting in some great performances for Villarreal before the Corona outbreak, and he was important with goals and assists, and also, as you mentioned, with Nigerian players as well. I've interviewed a few in my previous years as interviewing professional players and managers, and they all seem to have one thing in common. They're always very hungry, especially at a young age. They're really hungry to get a big move. They're really hungry to prove themselves in another league.
Yeah.
But although he's been doing well in La Liga, to make the switch to another country, to Arsenal, for example, and Simon rightly says about stats, but also with stats, we were just talking about Van Dijk. I remember when Van Dijk used to play for Groningen here, and there was question marks about him here. So you just never know. You never know what journey a player is going to go on, and timing is so important. Timing in terms of a transfer, timing in terms of the right manager. Maybe a new manager comes in and the player feels marginalised. So I just think, although he's doing well for Villarreal, I think especially in terms of goals and assists, I just think in the case of Arsenal, they would just be wise just to cast the net wide, and it's not about the number of bodies. It's about the it's about the quality, and above all, it's about the character. Because Arsenal we've had a history in recent years of having players that have got it too easy, that want to live in London, that want the easy life, that want to get paid well, but they don't want to win nothing. They're not willing to sacrifice and put their body on the line to win something. So I think going forward, in terms of identifying players, the most important thing is not so much the number of bodies, but the character of the player and how much the player in question is willing to win.
Yeah, and just as you said that about casting the net wide, Arsenal have actually cast the net very wide. In fact, they've cast the net to Norway. It's not too far away, but free transfer. The name is George Lewis. He's a very, very tricky winger, very pacey. Flair is ridiculous. It's the kind of player that you're excited to watch. And if potential could be followed through, there's a lot of factors in him developing to be a first-team player and whatnot. But from what I've seen, he looks like a very good player, a very exciting player to on the eye. Arsenal seem to be looking very far and wide for their free transfers and bargains at the moment. Steve, I know you had a look at him. What did you think?
Just this kid's quality, and what I've heard, this kid's as good as signed. It's literally done. He's already in London, and it's just a matter of putting the signature on the paper. He can play right or left. He was born in Rwanda. I don't know if that's some kind of connection or something.
Hotel Rwanda. It came with a shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know about that, but frightening pace. Again, another one who plays football like he was over the park. But now, I mean, this is, like I said, this is as good as done. I mean, does this mean the end of Reece Nelson? I think it might do. I think it might. We've seen less and less of him while Arteta's at the club. But if this kid's been signed, I think it could mean the end of him, or Nelson being put out on loan. Total quality. Be a great signing for us. But could be worrying for Nelson.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. And James has made many points about Arsenal need to look thoroughly within their own ranks before they go out and buy, because we're in a situation where money might not be sort of readily available. And they've obviously looked in their ranks. Miguel Arteta has been there long enough, and he's seen what's in his ranks, and he obviously feels that when it comes to attacking, we're a bit one-dimensional. Our wingers seem to be a bit the same. Saka, very good. he's probably the most tricky out of our wingers. Getting past that, you've got Pepe, very good dribbling, very tricky. But then past them two, is Reiss Nelson really the answer? Now, I'm not saying Reiss Nelson isn't a good player, because I think he is a good player, and I think he needs more time. And I think people have been very harsh on him because you don't hit the stats that you did in Holland, even for the first half of the season, and be a bad player. The Dutch league's a good enough technical league to see whether Reiss Nelson can handle himself, and he can. But is he the answer? Is he really going to put pressure on Pepe or Saka? And the fact that Arteta's going out and finding these gems on a free transfer from other countries that you wouldn't really necessarily think are coming out with gems. Although if you do your research, Norway has got a very good youth academy coming through. Then it says to me that he doesn't think that Reiss Nelson or what we've got currently in our camp is necessarily the answer. Do you think this spells the end for Reiss Nelson, Jerome?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think he's a very talented player, Reiss Nelson. He hasn't had a proper run in the team, but for me, I think he's better on the right. And if we've got Pepe to play on the right, then I just can't see Reiss Nelson playing as much anyway, let alone if we sign another winger. So yeah, I'm not too sure really.
Simon, what do you think of? Do you think this is less playing time for Reiss Nelson, or do you think this is his opportunity to go on to loan in a Premier League team, which might suit him a little bit better?
Well, you know my feelings on Reiss Nelson anyway. I put him above Jadon Sancho. I've not hidden away from that. I still stand by that. If you give Reiss Nelson the opportunity for a full season where he's playing week in and week out, he will turn out better numbers than Jadon Sancho. I'll stand by it. But with this kid coming through, it could be competition for Reiss, and to see like basically what Reiss will do, because to put him up against Pepe, and it's like 72 million, our record signing, it's a lot of pressure on Reiss. But if it's another kid that's just come through, then Reiss might look at it and think, "Oh, I've got this in bag. I've got this. I'll be all right." Then we'll know what his attitude will be like. Because if he thinks like that with a young kid, then fair enough. That is a big issue. But he could actually nurture the young kid as well. I think he would actually nurture the kid more than what Pepe would, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. So touching on attitude, James, what was it? Do you know much about? I know he was in Germany with Hoffenheim. What was it about Reiss Nelson? Do you think that where he had a really good start of his time on loan, which then sort of kind of drifted out a bit?
I think his experience at Hoffenheim is, and Simon makes a great point about him playing. If he plays regularly, and you said about young players here in the Netherlands in the Dutch league, the biggest difference, and I think I mentioned it on the last time I was on as well, when a player breaks through in the Netherlands, doesn't matter if it's for Ajax, doesn't matter if it's for Willem II, doesn't matter if it's for Groningen, doesn't matter. There's all one thing in common, which is they are played in their natural position, and they receive support from their manager, teammates, and fans. If he plays a stray pass or he doesn't play well, they're not going to bin him straight away.
Yeah,
and I think in the case of the signing for George Lewis as well, potentially it's one for the future. And admittedly, I don't know much about George Lewis, but when I heard about it, I automatically thought to myself, when you start, it's just my personal opinion, when you go out signing young players from abroad, that tells me that your own youth setup isn't good enough. I mean, for example, a lot of people were saying about Arsenal need to go out and sign a central defender in the summer. As far as I'm aware, we've got Daniel Ballard. Daniel Ballard went on loan to Swindon, and okay, it's not the highest level, but he became an important part for Swindon before he got injured and returned to Arsenal. And if we're going to go out in the summer and spend an awful lot of money on a centre half when you've already got a tremendous centre half in the youth academy, bring him in the first team squad. Let him play a few games. I mean, as sad as it makes me feel as an Arsenal fan of over 30 years, we are not going to win the league anytime soon. So the most important thing is to build a spine going forward of players that want to play for the club, that are hungry, and are going to stick together. I mean, I've even spoken to a fair few professionals that are self-confessed Arsenal fans, and they even tell me, when was the last time they had a settled lineup? When was the last time you could reel 5, 6, 7 players off of a starting lineup of an Arsenal team? A long time ago. So I think going forward, although George Lewis appears to be over the line, and it's great, but just be aware next time. You know, this is real money we're talking about as well. It's not peanuts. And just make sure that our own youth academy is up to scratch, because that's also something which is very important.
Yeah, touching on the Arsenal Youth Academy, we do a weekly section of the show, which is Arsenal Youth Watch, where we go through the Arsenal youth team and spot any talent that may be able to potentially come through, or we pick a player and check him out and see whether he's got the credentials to come through at Arsenal. Not necessarily now, but maybe in the future. This week's Arsenal Youth Watch is Miguel Azeez, the central midfielder, 17 years of age, got called up to the Arsenal first team. He was on the bench in the Olympiacos game, and the noises coming from Arsenal is that he's a player beyond his years. He's been playing. He was playing in the under 15s at 18, in the under 18s at 15. The other way around. It isn't really that impressive. He's playing in the under 18s at 15, and he's looking like he could be a real talent. I know it's going to take time, and I'm not putting any pressure on you, Miguel Azeez, because I'm hearing good things, but I know you guys took a look at him. What did you come back from when you saw a bit of Miguel Azeez, Jerome?
Yeah, I like the look of him. He looks like someone that is just naturally gifted. The game looks very easy to him. Yeah. He seems always in control, very relaxed. Doesn't seem to get sort of flustered. He's played for England, I think, under 16, 17, 18. He seems to be able to do a lot for a centre midfielder. He seems he can dribble past players. He can spread he can play long balls. He can score. He can tackle him. And he looks like someone that, fans that might go and watch the youth games, someone that you would actually enjoy watching. Like you get like pleasure out of watching them play because they're good on the eye. So he looks excellent. Time will tell as to how he develops, but we will see. But he looks like a very good footballer.
Yeah, I know you took a look at him, Steve. One thing I did notice is he loves a one-touch pass and just to be there for the next man. It's a smile on your face. You obviously want to see a bit of that more in the middle.
Lines, yeah.
Go on, Steve. Go on.
No, you. It was one of the things that I was going to say.
Sorry, mate.
This. No, mate. It's fantastic, but he had his first game was against Itching. I mean, they were celebrating their lights being fitted in, the floodlights for the first time. So that was quite funny. But everybody that day, if you was an Arsenal fan, they all went to see Zach Medley, Emil Smith-Rowe, amongst other, just for a few to mention, Dominic Thompson. But this was the kid that he stood out, and he stood out a mile. And as you say, he's got leadership qualities. He likes to run at players. Exactly what you said. He likes that pinpoint passing where he plays the ball into the midfield, into the forward, and someone lays it off, and he carries on his run. Just so confident, and he's just another one. It's quite exciting, this under 23s that we've got at the moment, because this is another one who really had fantastic leadership qualities. The kid's got. And he just doesn't look like nothing bothers him. No fear. Great. I mean, fantastic.
He's very comfortable on the ball. And we weren't saying that potentially our youth academy is not doing the bits, because our youth academy is a good youth academy. But there's obviously certain positions within our youth development that are not sort of floating Mikel Arteta's boat. and that's obviously what seems to be flair. He needs it. We can't all be Roman soldiers and Spartans, mate. We can't all be like athletes. Sometimes you need that bit of craft in there. That's something a bit special. That's something a bit different.
He's so good with his pace. He's so good with his touch that he's not blessed with pace. He's not blessed with pace at all. Yeah. But he's so good with his touch that he doesn't need to it. You look at someone like people like Hoddle, Leticio, who couldn't run. Reminds me of something like that. They can't run, but they've got this incredible touch, and that's what he's got.
Yeah, it's one thing they said is he drives at defense. So he might not have the pace, but where he drives at players, it puts them on their toes. They're uneasy. Defenders don't like to be ran at, and he does that from the deep line midfield. And we hope to see you in the future, Miguel. I know. Simon, did you take a look at him?
Yeah, he reminds me of Alexander Kleb.
That's a fair point.
When Alexander Kleb get the ball and he won't take a touch and look. He'd just get the ball and he's off. He were never quick, but his feet were quick. When he gets trapped in a corner as well, this Miguel, when he gets trapped in a corner, he knows exactly how to get out of it. He knows when to take the defender one way and go the other. He's actually quite strong in midfield as well. There were I think it were against Burnley, I think it was, at the Emirates. And he got two players on him, and it looked like he were going to go nowhere and lose the ball. He put it through one person's legs and then shoulder barged the other player and knocked him to the floor. And then they ended up going on a counter-attack. But he's not fast. He's not quite fast. He's not quick or anything like that, but he's more awareness for his age.
Yeah.
He plays like a 25-year-old.
And you can't say it's bad. Do you know much about Miguel Azeez? If I haven't butchered his name against there, James.
I can only be honest with you guys and say that I've only seen clips of him, but he looks like a very inventive and a very confident young man.
Yeah,
and it would be very interesting to see what happens because it reminds me very much of. I interviewed recently Charlie Gilmore, who left Arsenal last summer. He's now on loan or was on loan here in the Netherlands at Telstar upon signing for Norwich. And one thing that stuck with me when I spoke to him, he said to me, when you come through the Arsenal Youth Academy and everything is on the plate for you and you are able to tour around the world and the best facilities and the best coaches, when you leave the club, you automatically think that they're going to queue up for you. Not in an arrogant sense, but you think you might have lots of options. But the trick is, especially for the younger players, the more established teams, they want to see how well young players will cope in a men's game. In terms of their physicality, in terms of how they blossom. So it'll be interesting to see how Miguel develops, because the most important thing is when making a step up to the youth team, that the coaches are confident he will be a young man that will be able to cope with it in the more established teams. Yes, there are many promising young players that are boys, but they're wondering if they can make this step up and be prolific and make good performances in a man's game.
Yeah, which is very important because it's well and good doing it in training against the men, but in a match, that's when you might get clamped by someone who you might drop the shoulder against. And as Sam was saying before, some of these youths are way beyond their years. If anyone's seen the interview I've done with Stevie Grieve, he said it himself. He speaks to youth players now where they tell him that he dropped his shoulder to let the guy put his weight on the other foot, which would then open his legs and then he could go the other way. These guys are thinking of this stuff way before they're actually made the move, whereas some people would actually do the move and they didn't know what they were thinking. So the youth these days are a different level of thinking. One of the players we've just been linked with is Gerson. His dad And there's something going around with dads. There's a lot of dads and Arsenal fans and Arsenal. It's Thomas Partey's dad. It's Gerson's dad. And it was, can't remember. Oh, yeah, it was Aubameyang's dad. Like, dads, leave it out. We'd rather just hear from agents in the future. But we're gonna look into this one. Gerson was a player we looked at before, and we've been linked with before. He had a time at Roma, which had its ups and downs, and then he was loaned out to Fiorentina. They wanted to actually keep him on a permanent deal, but Gerson wanted to go back to Brazil, and apparently only to Flamengo, which is why Roma ended up losing out on 8 million. So they weren't happy with that one. Has many people taken a look at Gerson and Simon? I think you was the one who made the most noise about him earlier on.
Yeah, I saw some clips on YouTube, but anything could be good on YouTube. A squirrel on a jet ski is good on YouTube. But basically, when you watch him play, and obviously when he went to Roma, I think they paid something like 16.7 million for him or something like that, and it didn't quite work out or something. And then he went, like you've said, Fiorentina, and then he went back, and then Flamengo paid, I think, just over 10 million for him. Mm-hmm. I think he's won 3 trophies over there. I don't know them sort of trophies, but he's won 3 over there. And the way that he controls the ball, and it's hard because I don't watch Brazilian football, and I don't know how to judge it, because I can watch that and think, oh, it'll be awesome at Premier League. And then you stick him next to someone like Xhaka and he could be lost. So that's what, I can never judge it. Well, but it gets rated a lot. It gets rated a lot in Brazil.
I think even as a continent, like Europe as a whole, when it comes to judging South American countries, I think we're quite snobby. When we say the best in the world, it's like Europe is the only country in the world, and that's simply not the case. Like if you look at the track record of World Club Championships, like I know some will say that clubs don't take it seriously, but they've learned from not taking it seriously that you'll get your pants pulled down against these South American clubs, and they will take no prisoners. They will make you look silly if you want to go over there and not take the competition seriously, as many have seen them previously. So
I watched him against Liverpool,
and against Liverpool, they were brilliant. They were brilliant.
Yeah, it were brilliant in midfield as well.
Pablo Mari was at Man City before, so he's had time in England. He went out to Flamengo. He's played in Spain. Went out to Flamengo. And he's done well there. He's come back and he looks like an absolute player. He looks like a player. He looks like he can hold his own in the Premier League. I know we need to see a little bit more of him, but as I said last week, you don't really get to see players in your team, in your squad, and play a couple of games before you make the decision to buy them. So, and we've seen that of Mori. So for me, I feel like for 10 million, we've seen enough. We've seen enough to buy him. I don't know whether how true the Gerson is. His dad said they're interested, but potentially that could be his dad throwing that out there to get other people to take interest and make a move quickly before someone else. So I wouldn't read too much into these things because they usually come with an ulterior motive for the good of the player. And it's not.
Could it be why Mari took so long as well to be announced? Maybe they were trying to sort that out as well.
Maybe. Just before we go and ask James questions and get some questions from the comment section, guys, in the comment section, do get your questions ready soon. I do want to say, if I don't answer your question or I miss your question, please write it in the comment section, and me or one of the guys will answer that question. And if it's a good enough question, I'll bring it up as a main question on next week's show. Yeah. So, like, if I do miss your questions, I apologize, but please write in the comment section and we'll respond to you personally. Kieran Tierney has been linked to Leicester. Now, I will pay this no mind, but I saw it 3 or 4 times and I looked a bit deeper. And it actually said that it was on a Bleacher Report that said if Ben Chilwell goes to Chelsea or leaves the club, Leicester are going to test Arsenal's resolve with Kieran Tierney and put in a bid to see how much, to see whether they will let him go. There's obviously something in it. How much would it take Arsenal to sell Kieran Tierney, if at all? And why would they even think of selling already? Go on, Simon. I know you look like you're about to burst. And Steve, I know you look like you're about to burst as well. So you're next. Don't worry.
There's nothing in it whatsoever. Everyone knows that Ben Chilwell is going to leave Leicester City, and he's going to go to Chelsea, in my opinion. I mean, fair enough, Leicester City, you're in the Champions League as it stands now, but if Chelsea come knocking, sorry, but you're losing him just like you lost Maguire. But you will get decent money for him because you've shown me, Maguire, that you will hold out for the money. But Kieran Tierney, just watch his interview. Watch his interview on Sky. Literally, just watch his interview and it'll tell you everything that you need to know. He's excited with Arteta. Arteta can't stop raving about him. Just because he's not worked for him yet at Arsenal and because he got injured, the media are basically picking it out and saying, well, there you go, we'll just chuck Tierney in. We'll use it as a headline. It's clickbait, it's nonsense, bullshit. Stay away from my captain.
All right. And now, Steve, what do you have any more to add on that? If you can.
Top that, Steve.
Like, you top it. I mean, go on, add a little cherry on top. Go on, Steve.
Yeah, it's just chip paper, isn't it? Just chip paper. Just like the Gerson deal, I'm afraid, which I was going to absolutely slaughter him, but here we go.
God, now he's stabbed the cherry cake.
Every day after day, right, we get messages in the thing and they say, thank you, transfer exchange, for squashing all this load of rubbish. And this is just another absolute load of rubbish. The papers are trying to make out that because we've got Tierney, because we've got Saka, because we've got Kolasinac, right, for some reason we've got to get rid of one of our left backs. It's absolute total rubbish, right? Arteta has come out, he said none of them's going, right? There's many games they've got to play this next season, right? There's always injuries, there's Europe, and you need a quality squad. Mm-hmm. So Arteta said that, so finished. There's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you do have to sort of be wary of some of the clickbait, guys. This is why I originally started this show, was because of that. Was because I see too much clickbait out there, and it was the reaction of you guys where it was like, we missed out on so and so, and then you guys are like, it's a joke. I can't stand this club. It's like we were really in for him. Look a bit deeper. They sent scouts out 2 years ago. They put a bid in 3 years ago. That's where they pulled the link back from. And they say things like Arsenal were after. Now he's on the market. Maybe they could go after him again. Like, read the wording. Like, pay attention to the details and read between the lines, people. James, I know this. We had a question on Twitter, so we have to answer it. I know there was a link to a guy coming to the Premier League. This name. James, please help me here. Aberzak Aldahama. Come on.
You couldn't have killed that anymore.
I couldn't. Aberzak Andahala.
The second part. The second bit was the easy part.
James
part was the first bit.
I can't even do it. That's a party trick.
No, if I you want me to say it again?
Go on.
Abdussalam Hamdallah.
Brilliant.
Abdussalam Hamdallah.
Abdussalam.
I've been fortunate enough, guys, to speak to a former teammate of his. Mm-hmm. Many of you might not know, he used to play in Norway for Arsenal. Mm-hmm. And I interviewed his former teammate Edvard Skagestad a few weeks ago now. And about Hamdallah, that you might not know, the team that brought him, Arlesund in Norway, they spent about 10 million Norwegian kroner on him, and they brought him from Morocco, from I think Olympic Saifi, his like hometown, and they sold him to Guangzhou in China for 30 million kroner. I mean, he scored and kept scoring, and he also, went on to win the award for scoring the most goals. And it's even Skagger said to me, who was his former teammate at Arsenal, he said that he's playing Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia at the moment, and he said that it might not be the highest level, but he's still got to put the ball in the back of the net. And he was also omitted from the Moroccan squad for the World Cup. I think that was due to there being divisions in the camp between the Arabic speakers and the French speakers of Morocco. Oh. But I know that he was linked with Aston Villa and he was linked with Newcastle, but I think whoever gets him, he has a great eye for goal. Yeah. And if you look at some of his scoring stats, they are absolutely unreal. And people might say, "Oh, people might say, oh, it's the Saudi Arabian league; it's not up to much." But I know a fair few. There are many Moroccans that live here in the Netherlands, and at the World Cup, they were all saying, "Why on earth has he been omitted from the squad? He keeps scoring, he keeps scoring, he keeps scoring." And when Morocco got to the World Cup, they couldn't score goals. So I think that I know he's linked with Villa or Newcastle, but I think the next club that gets him, I think they're in for a real surprise.
Well, there you go. There's your piece from the Dutch expert, James Rowe. We're going to get in our questions now. The first one I saw, love that. Are you Chris Kamara's son? No. I am actually probably about 5 years younger than Chris Kamara, so no. But I'll rate that. I rate that because that means I'm doing bits. Thank you very much. Great appreciations there. Next one is a regular. Our man, Joseph Connor Gold. It's a question to Simon. Out of Torreira and Xhaka, Guendouzi, Willock and Ozil in midfield, who would you sell and keep? Big up Kieran, Jerome, James, Simon. Great show. Thank you very much, Joe.
I'd keep Guendouzi. I'd loan out Willock. I'd get rid of Ozil. I'd get rid of Torreira. And I'd get rid of Xhaka.
Easy. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Keep getting your questions in, people. Steve, I know you had a question for James, did you not?
Yeah. Well, Kieran sent me out on a scouting mission to Holland. He worked so hard.
Hi, Steve. Hello.
All right, mate. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Right,
I think I know. Yeah. Is it the one you wanted to ask?
Yes,
it's the one you wanted to ask about Miguel Flap?
Yes, it was, mate. He sort of took the eye, and then I just had a look, and there just seemed to be nothing. But no one seemed to want him. He had no links to any Premiership clubs, and I was thinking, this what's going on here? Because to me, this kid looked absolute quality, and I just wanted to know your views on it.
Well, in the case of Miguel Flap, he really broke out here in the Netherlands at Heerenveen, and he had a tremendous season. Steve, fellas as well. He had a tremendous breakout season where he scored, I think, 16 goals and provided 6 assists. And they did like a spotlight on him here in the Netherlands, and he was still living at home with his mum and dad. And then people were like, such a breakout player. You'd think he'd maybe buy her own house, and he was still living at home with his mum and dad. He bought a new car. And they did like a little mini documentary on him, and they went into his hometown and they went for like a coffee, and they said, your future, what about your future? Because he was linked with Feyenoord, and there was rumours gathering that he would go from Heerenveen to Feyenoord. And they said, maybe you'd like to go to Spain, Germany or England. He said, no, I don't want to go to England. And everybody was surprised. They said, well, you don't want to go to the Premier League? He said, no. He said, I'd prefer Germany or Spain. And he plummeted for Anderlecht.
Fair enough.
Obviously, the biggest club in Belgium, quite close to the Netherlands as well. So if he wants to return home, but I don't think he'll be leaving Anderlecht anytime soon. I think he'll stay there at least another season, and then maybe go into the Bundesliga perhaps. I mean, maybe his preference might have changed. But he's also been capped by the Netherlands at youth international level, and. But you wonder, I don't necessarily think that Koeman's looking in terms of the Belgian league, but he's definitely got a bright future in front of him.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I thought so. But great finisher. Some of the goals that he was scoring, some of the touches that the kid had was something special.
I've got two questions. One is Oh, go on, Simon. Go on. You jump in. Go on. Simon.
What do you guys reckon to the Aubameyang Icardi swap deal?
How long you got?
There's a lot of talk been made about Icardi's personal life, but I'm not interested in that. If he's as long as he's not any trouble in the squad, I don't even want to talk about that because I don't think it's fair. But if Aubameyang's got 1 year left in his deal and you're potentially bringing in a player with a good goal scoring record on a 2 to 3 year deal, what would be a 3 year deal, it makes sense if Aubameyang's not going to sign a new contract. But it just plays into this whole swap deal thing again, which I just can't see the swap deal happening. If I'm honest, there's too many factors involved. Does Icardi want to actually join Arsenal? Does Aubameyang want to join Inter Milan? This is the thing with swap deals. There's too many factors. Although this seems like the fairest like for like I've seen in a while. I don't want a player that's been forced out of the club to come to us. Anyone else want to have a say on it?
That's what it seems like it is. That's what it seems like it is. It seems like Milan are thinking, we'll get rid of him because I'm hearing they want Timo Werner, and they want to put all their cash and all their time into getting Timo Werner. So that's not a great thing for a start. I spent 2 hours doing a list of Marco Icardi's problems but now I can't say.
As long as my arm.
No, go on. Name a few, Steve.
No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding.
No, that's the thing.
I know a few. I know a few of his problems.
There is a few.
But what are his problems?
He's got a big attitude. At PSG, he walks around thinking that he owns PSG.
No, but that's
obviously he's got Neymar, but then his wife is also his agent, so she wears the trousers in the relationship. Okay. She picks what club he wants. He demands big money. He doesn't like being dropped onto the bench because he wants to constantly play. It just sounds like an absolute nightmare.
Can I stop there? Okay, so
I got worse than that.
No, but wait.
I got worse than that.
Okay, wait. So the first one you said he's got a bad attitude. How do we know? Second one you said he walks around like he owns the place. That's hearsay. This is all hearsay. The third one, you was talking about his wife being his agent. Who cares? His wife picks his club. So does Jamie Vardy's. And then you go on to he asks for big wages. He's one of the top goal scorers in Europe. Like these are menial things. I don't want to hear so and so. I want facts. I don't
mind any of that. Because we had all this when before Aubameyang signed. Oh, he's trouble. Oh, this and that and this and that. Right, and just look what's happened there. It goes back. He is a bit of a troublemaker. It goes back to 2013 where he done the John Terry with Lopez's wife. It was in 2014 refused to shake everybody's hand in one of the cup games that he was playing in. He spat at fans when he threw his shirt into the ground and they threw it back, so he went and spat at them. It's just his autobiography come out. Well, you can imagine what that was like, can't you? His autobiography.
It made 15. How you come out with an autobiography when you're still playing?
It made Fergie and Keanes look like Mills and Boone. It was that bad. But he scores. If he's going to come and score goals and do the business, then yeah. But obviously, I don't
do the business. All right. So that we don't know. It might happen. I want to quickly ask you about a player, James, before we go, and then I want to quickly ask you what you feel the next move for the Dutch league is. But the player I want to ask you about is Ryan Gravenberch. He's Ajax central midfielder. And if anyone's got a moment, please go and have a look at this kid. And don't just have a look at highlights. See if you can find a full game. This guy, for me, he's eye to behold. He's smooth on the ball, very silky, plays it simple, always available. He's an absolute gem. James, go on. Please tell us what you think of this player.
Well, to start off, for those that don't know, he broke the record to be the youngest debutant in the Ajax first team. You think of the names that the conveyor belt has brought through the years: Bergkamp, Kluivert, Seedorf, and he was the one that was youngest than all of them to debut in the first team. And, you know, he came through the ranks, and I think he'll be the next breakout star. But he's got a head on him, and he's also very disciplined. I mean, I recently saw where he did a small show with Andy van der Meijden, who also played for Ajax and Inter Milan, where he kind of meets Andy in the car and they drive around and chat about football. And he got in the car and Van der Meijden said to him, "Where you been?" He said, "Yeah, I stayed behind today to do extra power training." So, you know, you imagine being really, really young still and having the discipline and the fight to want to stay behind and do power training because you know that you want to get even better. And I think he'll be like the next breakout star. I mean, before the virus outbreak, he was very much held in high esteem by Ajax fans. I don't think he'll be leaving anytime soon, but I think next season in particular, you'll hear an awful lot more of him.
Yeah, I don't want him to leave. I want him to get the full development, get the full games under his belt, and be a seasoned player by the time he leaves. I don't want him to be one of them players that leaves too early and then just ends up on the bench or in the under-23s. This is not what this guy needs. He just recently played a full 90 minutes against PSV, which says a lot for a 17-year-old if they're playing him against one of the biggest rivals in the league. So watch out for him. And last before we go, remember, guys, if I haven't read out your question, please put it in the comment section. We will answer it. And like I said, if it is a good question, I will answer it as a main question on next week's show. James, the Dutch league, they've made their move. Am I right in saying they handed Ajax the title? What's the next move for the Eredivisie?
The next move for you. Hello, are you fell away when describing that? I only heard half of the question. What do you see the next move being for the Eredivisie in Holland? Oh, well, for those that don't know, the current situation in the Netherlands is there are no public events where football fans can be in attendance until the 1st of September. Even the Dutch government have said that the new season won't start until the 1st of September, and maybe even afterwards. And even then, it might still be behind closed doors. And although the cases and hospital admissions in the Netherlands are also decreasing, but the Dutch FA kind of took a decision to have no promotion, no relegation, upon which it stays the same. Very, very hard on Cambuur Leeuwarden and the Graafschap, who were on course to get promoted. They opted against the 20-season Eredivisie for next year, which would have been the most logical decision. But they opted against it because of the extra weight on the police for 4 separate midweek games. Although it might not sound much looking from afar, but for fans and listeners that don't know, when the Dutch fixtures are released here in the Netherlands, that they release what they call a concept fixture list, where their first port of call is not the local council, it's not the cities, it's not the clubs. First port of call is the police, to make sure that the police have enough police agents to be able to police in and around the stadiums, and that particular cities don't clash with public holidays or special festivals. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. But it is very sad on Cambuur Leeuwarden in particular, who were 11 points clear and didn't get promoted. And RKC Waalwijk looked as if they were already down and get a reprieve. And even in the case of ADO Den Haag, Pardew is now left via mutual consent, although he only won one game.
Oh, is he? Wow.
But he left by mutual consent, and Chris Powell was also left, and I think he took Steve Butler with him as well. But he only won one game, Steve, against RKC Waalwijk, who were bottom, and that game was at home.
Well, I didn't know he'd left.
Pardew, by his own admission, said the gap between the top of the league and the middle is quite a lot. But I don't think Ardo would have survived anyway. And the word on the street before the corona outbreak was that Pardew was only going to be here until the end of the season anyway. So it's
Will
no
they get the
surprise that he
compensation,
stepped down.
James? Will they get the compensation? And they're talking about £350 million worth of compensation that clubs need to survive in Holland.
Well, I think it'd be interesting to see what happens, because the clubs that have been hard done by, they lawyered up immediately where this will rumble on. A decision has been made to stop the league. A decision has been made that there will be no professional football here until after the 1st of September at least. But the clubs that have been hard done by in their eyes, such as the Graafschap, Cambuur, Leeuwarden, and also Utrecht, they lawyered up immediately. So they'll go to the courts and try to get their cases heard. So it's not completely done yet. But if been taken, one that stands.
Yeah, well, we don't know what's going to happen from now on. We don't know what's going to happen in England. We're just going to enjoy the German league and the South Korean league and Uzbekistan and Belarus when that starts up again. I would like to say thank you to all my guests. Don't forget to like and subscribe, people. I don't know what the numbers are saying, but I can't lie. I've been in the comment section before, you guys, and you were slacking a little bit. I'm not saying you were today, but usually it's like big numbers on the watching, but then the likes ain't coming in. Please like, subscribe, and share it, obviously, so we can get more. I don't know whether you can get more than this, but we can give this more. Yeah, if you like and subscribe. Okay, I would like to thank my star guest today. Not you three. Not the scouts. You're just regular. You're residents. You're residents. You're part of the furniture. James Rowe. Thank you very much.
It's nice to be loved, isn't it?
Thank you very much for coming down, James. Please go and check out some of James's recent.
Welcome.
Please go and check out some of James's recent interviews with David Thompson, Danny Cowley, Brian Dean, Luke Chadwick. Some of you boys won't even know who Luke Chadwick, Brian Dean are. Like, it's a sad state of affairs, but go and check them out. Educate yourself. James is always open for questions. He loves it. That's why we got him on the show. I'd like to thank my scouts.
You're more than welcome. Thanks for having me on.
No, anytime, James, anytime. I'd like to thank my scouts because they put in a lot of work to make sure that the show's good. They make sure that the dispute's good. Yeah. Thank you very much, Jerome Marks.
Thanks. Cheers, boys.
No worries. Thank you very much, Simon, the chef.
Cheers, everyone. I didn't matter a minute ago, but cheers.
And, of course, our chief scout, Steve K.
I'd like to thank very much. And because James is on, I think it's very apt to wish Dennis Bergkamp a happy 51st birthday.
Oh, very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, the king.
Brownie points. Brownie points for Dennis Bergkamp there. Steve had that in his locker to show us all up. We'll be having words afterwards, Steve. We'll be having words afterwards. Okay, thank you very much, people. Please like and subscribe. Peace out. Stay safe and wash your hands.